Hello everyone, welcome to FAM 401, which is Family Life Education. Hopefully that is the class that you are trying to be in Blackboard right now, and hopefully that's the class that you think you're enrolled in SOAR. Just a couple of notes on enrollment for this class. You have to be a senior in order to be in this class. You should be within 3 semesters of graduation, and you have to be a Child and Family Studies major. Looking over the class roster, it looks like most of you fit those requirements, but if you do not, please shoot me an email and we can talk about a better route for you to get this class taken, either a different semester or find another class for you, because this class is restricted to Child and Family Studies senior students. To get us started today, we have an agenda. Each week in class, you're going to see an agenda on our PowerPoint. You are also going to have an agenda in your end of the semester project, which we will discuss as we go through today and throughout the whole semester. But the agenda for today, basically it's just a schedule of what we're going to go over. We are going to do welcome and introductions, which unfortunately in an online class, that's just going to be me introducing myself to you. I'll get a chance to know y'all a little bit better later in your first discussion question. After that, we're going to go over the syllabus. I'm not going to hit every point. You need to download your syllabus and read it very, very well, but we are going to go over some of the high points of your syllabus. We are going to define family life education, which is also known as FLE. We're going to discuss the importance of family life education. We're going to talk about the purposes and principles of family life education. We are going to talk about some career options within this field, and then we're going to go over your guidelines for your text critique. And at the end, we'll also go over your homework that's due for next week. So just a little bit about me. Looking over the class roster, I've had most of you in class before. So I know quite a few of you very well, but for those of you who don't know me or haven't met me yet, again, my name is Miss Flowers. I am an instructor in the Child and Family Studies Department. This is my 3rd year as a faculty member at USM, but I have been around USM for almost forever. Feels like forever sometimes. I graduated with my undergrad degree in Child and Family Studies with an emphasis in family relations. I also graduated from USM in the same department with my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. So I have been around the department for quite a while. I've actually taken this class that you're taking right now way back when I was an undergrad student, which is kind of nice. I know the teacher's perspective. Obviously, I've taught this class 8 times, but I've also been where you are, and I understand how much work is involved in this class. I understand that it is going to get stressful for you, and I think that perspective for me really helps me to get you guys through the semester and get you what you need to be successful, because I have that teacher perspective as well as the student perspective. A little bit about me personally. The picture on the right, you can see that's me and my husband. His name is Henry. We have been married for 3 years, and we are expecting our first child in February. As of today, the first day of class, I am 15 weeks pregnant and will be growing that baby all semester long. So if you see me around at the beginning of the semester versus the end of the semester, it might look a little different. And then to the left, you can see our little fur babies. The dog, her name is June. She is 4 years old. And we kind of joke around that she's more of a grandmother than a human. More of a grandmother than a dog. She does not like to play. She likes to sleep and cuddle. And she just wants to love on you all day long. And then we have our cat. That picture is quite old of him. He is 1.5 years old now. His name is Fallon, and he is feisty and mean. He does not like me. We are not friends, but I love him anyways. So that's just a little bit about me. Like I said, I do look forward to getting to know more about y'all. Even the ones of you that I know already, I look forward to getting to know more about you in your introduction discussion posts. So our objectives for today, kind of like the agenda, every week in your PowerPoints in here, you're going to see a slide that says objectives. You are also going to have some objectives when you get ready to put your presentation together at the end of the semester. Again, we're going to talk about that more later, what that means. But basically, objectives just mean what are we going to accomplish today? What do we hope to accomplish in our time together? So for today, what we're going to accomplish in our time together is we're going to define what family life education is. We're going to defend the importance of family life education. So why does it matter? Why is it here? And why are you taking a whole semester long class on it? We're also going to identify the purposes and principles of family life education. We're going to apply some of those purposes and principles in your chosen profession, which means we're going to kind of think about those purposes and principles and then look at the different job opportunities in this field and see how they kind of apply to what you're interested in. And then our last objective is to review the guidelines for Text Critique 1. All right, so looking ahead at the syllabus, kind of an overview of what to expect in this class. You are going to select an organization to deliver a family life education program to. And we're going to walk through all the steps of how you're going to accomplish this each week as we go through. So don't stress out about that as you hear this. This is just an overview to kind of help you wrap your mind around what exactly you're going to be doing in this class. So you're gonna pick an organization, and you're actually going to do that within this next week. You're going to partner with that organization. You are going to complete service learning hours. That's what that ASL stands for, Academic Service Learning. You're going to complete a minimum of 5 service learning hours this semester at that agency. And by the end of those hours, you are going to give a presentation to your agency, kind of based on the things you've learned about them and what you think they need to know. And that's actually going to be a family life education presentation. Now, a little side note, you can see there's a lot of acronyms in these PowerPoints. FLE, ASL, there's going to be more as we go through. If you get confused, there is an acronym guide in your syllabus. It kind of goes through all the important acronyms of what we're going to be doing this semester. I really encourage you to pull out that list of acronyms, keep it handy so that you can kind of stay on track with us as we go through the semester. So after you pick your organization, the first thing you're going to do is conduct a needs assessment. That's just a short survey that you're going to make. You're not going to have to do that on your own. We're going to walk through how to do that together. But you're going to make that survey and you're going to pass it out at your organization, and they're going to respond to your questions. And that survey is going to tell you what your agency needs from you. Maybe they need help with communication, or maybe they need help with networking or fundraising, or maybe they need more resources on how to actually help the families and children that they work with. But you're going to find out exactly what they need from you as a family life educator. Once you've found that out, you're going to start putting together your presentation, and your presentation is going to be based on what they need. So you're going to write an audience description and a literature review paper. Both of those papers are going to inform your project. That's something nice about this class. There isn't really any busy work. There is a lot of work in this class, but it all ties together and it all has a purpose. So your audience description and your lit review paper, those are both going to be very useful in your final project. A side note about the papers, this is a writing intensive class, which means that you have to write an average of about 20 pages throughout the semester. There is no 20-page paper. Don't freak out about that. It's going to be broken down into several much smaller papers. Your biggest paper is going to be your lit review, and that's going to be about 5.5 to 7 pages. But that is as big as it's going to get this semester. Everything else will be pretty significantly smaller than that as far as your writing assignments. Okay, so moving on, the next bullet you can see says design a family life education program. So you've already picked your organization, you're doing your service learning hours, you've conducted your needs assessment, you've found out what they need from you, you've written your papers about it, and you're going to start putting together your program. Your program is going to culminate in a 30 to 35 minute presentation by you. That sounds like a lot. it is kind of a lot, but it's not just going to be you up there talking for 30 to 35 minutes. You're going to have lots of different things you have to accomplish during that time. You're going to have an icebreaker, you're going to have different activities, learning activities. Some of those activities might take 5 to 10 minutes just on their own. So you're not going to have to be talking for that whole time, but you will be leading the presentation for that 30 to 35 minutes. In order to help you put together that presentation, this semester is going to end with 2 main projects, both a presentation and a final FLE program. And the program is basically going to be a giant Word document that you compile. That'll probably be anywhere between 30 to 35 pages. And that is going to be made up of all the different components of your presentation. So your binder, in this case for an online class, you're not going to turn in a physical binder. You're going to just compile it into a Word document, but you might hear me call it a binder. Your binder and your presentation, they go hand in hand, and you're going to be working on them both all semester. All semester, you're going to have weekly discussion questions each week. Each week in those discussion questions, you are building part of your program. There are no busy work discussion questions. Each discussion question is designed specifically to help you accomplish something that's required for your binder. So then, after you've got your weekly discussion posts that you're working together to build on your binder, you're also going to be conducting research, designing objectives, learning tasks. A lot of this has to do with what you're doing during your discussion posts, but those are some of the main things that you'll be doing to put together both your binder and your presentation. Then you're going to present to the class and to your organization or your agency that you're working with. Your presentation to the class is going to take place via a YouTube video. You are going to have your presentation all ready to go, and you're going to actually present. You're going to be required to have a minimum of 3 people in your audience. That can be anyone that you would like as long as they're over the age of 18. So your mom, your friend, your brother, whoever you want to present to, whoever you can find to listen to you. But you're going to need at least 3 people. And ideally, you want to have however many people in your class presentation audience. You want to have the same amount of people that you're going to have at your agency. So when you go to your agency to present, if you've only got 3 people that you're presenting to, you only need 3 people in your class presentation that you're going to record and upload for us. If you've got 10 people in your presentation at your agency, you want to try and find as close to 10 people as you can to do in your kind of mock presentation for the class. In your presentation, you're going to go through exactly what you're going to do at your agency. You're going to record it for us so that we can see both you and your audience, so we can see everything that's happening in your presentation. You're going to upload that to YouTube and submit it online for us, and the class will be able to view your presentation, and you'll get feedback from me as well. You do have to be approved from your class presentation before you can present at your agency. So you'll submit your class presentation via video online. I'll watch them and say, yep, you're approved to go to your agency and do this, or no, you need to work on this 2 or 3 things before you're able to go. But that's something that we'll talk about, together. I'm not just going to dump anything on you at the end of the semester. So all in all, you're working with an agency all semester long. You're completing service learning hours there with them. And it's going to kind of result in a 30 to 35 minute presentation that has a binder that goes along with it that includes all the parts of your presentation. And the goal really is that you are becoming a family life educator. You're going to walk into an organization and you are going to present to them whatever information they need from you, which is what family life educators do in very different settings. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, more about what family life educators do. But that's really your goal this semester. And your binder should be, that kind of resulting project should be something that any other family life educator could pick up and replicate your program. So that 30 to 35 minute presentation, anybody should be able to read your binder and know exactly how to replicate your presentation. That's kind of the goal of what we're going for. All right, your weekly discussion questions, just a little bit more about those. You need to fully read and listen to all of your PowerPoints, as well as all the other attached materials each week before you complete your discussion post. This class is set up kind of like a workshop to where each week you are going to learn something new in the PowerPoints that we're going to go through. We're going to talk about a different part of your binder, a different part of your program. And then your discussion question is going to be actually building that part of your own personal program. So one week we might talk about objectives. What are objectives? How do you make objectives? Why do we have objectives? And then your discussion question that week is you actually creating your objectives for your program. So it's really important that you've actually read all of your materials and listened to the PowerPoints before you try to do your discussion questions. You want to carefully read each prompt for your discussion question. There's usually multiple parts to each discussion prompt, and you don't want to miss any part of it. Make sure that you read through all of the detailed instructions before you begin. There are no word count limits on here. I'm not going to tell you you have to have 250 words or you can't have more than 500 words. These are not your typical discussion questions. Most of you have had classes in the past, online classes, where you have discussion questions. You just kind of get on and add your 2 cents to whatever topic you're talking about. That's not the case here. This is you actually building your project each week, and this is my way to kind of step alongside of you and say, hey, this looks great, or it looks like you might have misunderstood what we're talking about with this part of your project. The more work you put into these discussion questions each week as we go along, the easier your presentation is going to be and your binder is going to be at the end. Because ideally, if you are putting 100% effort into these discussion questions, at the end of the semester, when you're putting together your massive binder, all you're going to have to do is go through and copy and paste everything from your discussion questions into your binder. Now, if you don't put very much effort into your discussion questions, you're not going to get very much feedback from me, and you're not going to have any material to put into your binder at the end of the semester. So I'm not going to tell you how many words to write. The amount of effort that you put into these questions is really going to benefit you. So there's no need for me to tell you how hard to work on these or how much work to put into it. That really depends on how much work you want to do at the end of the semester. I will let you know that if I see you consistently putting minimal effort into discussion questions and you email me frantically the last week of the semester, I'm not going to be very helpful, because I'm not going to waste my whole last week of the semester when I've got a lot of other grading to do on playing catch up with you because you chose not to participate this semester through the discussion questions. But as long as you're staying on top of stuff, as long as you're communicating with me throughout the semester, you're going to be just fine. Your discussion posts are graded in 3 different areas on content, which means you addressed all of the required parts. There's 5 points for that. Spelling and grammar, there's 5 points for that. So is the spelling and grammar correct in your post? And your response to classmate posts. You are going to be assigned peer feedback partners throughout the semester. And in each post, you are responsible for responding to both of your classmates' posts. If for some reason one of your classmates chooses not to do a discussion question, you're not going to be penalized for not responding to their post. Obviously, they didn't give you anything to respond to. But you should be posting each week, and you should be responding to your classmates, your peer feedback partners' posts each week. When you're responding to your classmates' posts, you have to respond to both of your partners with a thoughtful response. And that does not mean, hey, this looks great, or hey, maybe work on this. These should be helpful responses. So like I said, each week you're working on a portion of your binder, and you should be working back and forth with your peer feedback partners all semester. That way, if 1 week you get to a section where you maybe just misunderstood, you did not understand, we'll use objectives again as an answer, or as an example. Say you did not understand what objectives are, you tried the post, but your peer feedback partners can see that you really didn't quite get it. They can kind of help you edit your objectives. They can help you say, hey, I think you're off track. This is maybe where you need to kind of pick up some slack in this area. And those peer feedback partners are going to be the same all semester. You can see them posted in the announcements tab. They're going to be emailed out to you, and they're also posted in that announcements tab on Blackboard. But you need to make sure that you are working with your peer feedback partners all semester. The same thing applies to as the discussion questions. However much effort you put into your discussion questions, that's how much you're going to get out of it. Same thing with your peer feedback partners. If you really work with your peer feedback partners, you get good responses. You're going to be able to kind of edit your discussion questions each week so that you've got a good final product for your binder. If you're not working well with your peer feedback partners, you're not giving good feedback, not only are you not going to get your points for that part of the assignment, but you're also not going to have as much help in putting your binder together. There's no need for you all to suffer through putting these binders together on your own. You have peer feedback partners to help you, and I encourage you to take advantage of that and really put effort into your responses to your peers. All right, so keys to survival in this class. Like I said before, there is a lot of work in this class. It can be very overwhelming at times, especially if you look at the entire syllabus or all of the rubrics at once. I encourage you not to do that. Take it week by week. Don't get overwhelmed with putting your whole binder together this week or putting together your 30-minute presentation this week. I promise you we will build each piece as we go, but you do need to have your syllabus handy all the time. You need to read your syllabus, highlight the important dates, write down your assignments in your calendar. Just basically have your syllabus with you all the time, and familiarize yourself with Blackboard. Know where the assignments are, where the rubrics are, where all your materials are. The more familiar you are with the syllabus and Blackboard up front, the easier it's going to be for you to get by. You are going to need to trust the process. Like I said, this is an overwhelming class, but if you take it one piece at a time, and you trust that I've got your back, I'm not going to leave you to drown in this class. If you are working hard each week putting together the next pieces of your binder, I'm not going to leave you to the sharks, okay? We will get through it together, but you got to put in your effort, you put in your work, and I'll meet you halfway, and we will get through the class. You will have a good binder at the end of the semester, and you'll have a good presentation to present as well. It's going to be important for you to read all of your materials. Your textbook is going to be your best friend. Sometimes students kind of lose track of the importance of their textbook. It's not something we just kind of do text critiques with at the beginning and then it's not applicable. Your textbook actually covers most of the parts of your binder as well. So each week as you're going through putting together part of your binder, even if you've already read the textbook chapter on that part of your binder a couple weeks ago, pull out your textbook, read it again. Use your textbook and your PowerPoint and all additional documents as you're putting together your discussion posts for your pieces of your binder every single week. You do not want to get behind in this class. There is a lot of work, and in my experience, students who get behind do not catch up. Students are not able to come back from missing 3 discussion posts because each one is going to build on the next one. Especially these first few weeks at the beginning, they're really, really important. You're picking your agency this week, you're picking your concepts in the next couple of weeks, you're putting together your survey in the next couple of weeks. If you get behind in that process, it's going to be really, really hard to come back. So stay on top of everything as we go through the semester, especially your service learning hours. You can see in the syllabus, it's clearly stated that you have to complete your service learning hours in order to move forward in this class. And I'll read this statement from the syllabus. It says, failure to complete academic service learning will result in a student not being allowed to present to the community agency and receiving a 0 for the course. It's only 5 service learning hours for a whole semester that you're required to do. I know you are all busy. I really do get that. It's going to be really important for you to find those 5 hours to complete your service learning hours. Otherwise, as the syllabus says, you're not able to do your presentation or to complete this class. And the dates for when your service learning hours are due is clearly outlined in the syllabus. Just looking ahead real quick, your first set of 3 hours for your service learning has to be completed by October 3rd. And your second set of service learning hours has to be completed, let's see, by the 31st of October. So you've got until the 31st of October to complete all 5 of your service learning hours. 3 of them do have to be completed by the 3rd of October. Keep that in mind as you're going forward, and make time for those. Like I said before, value and put effort into your discussion posts. That's going to be your key to survival. If you don't put effort into your discussion posts, you're going to be really struggling at the end of the semester. I can't say that enough. And lastly, communicate with me. I know this is an online class, so that might seem a little impossible or intimidating. But please, please, please shoot me an email. Come by my office hours. Talk to me on Blackboard Collaborate. Talk to me via the coffee shop discussion post that we have. But don't suffer in silence. Don't be lost and not let me know. If you have anything going on this semester that makes it kind of difficult for you to get through this class, please let me know and communicate with me. And I'll try to work with you the best that we can. Okay. So if we switch gears a little bit, we're not going to talk about the class anymore. We're not going to talk about overall things right now. We are going to move on to talking about what family life education is. If you do have more specific questions about details of the class or the syllabus or anything like that, again, communicate with me, shoot me an email, come by my office hours, and we'll get everything sorted out. So, what is family life education? The definition of family life education is education that assists individuals and families to broaden their knowledge and enhance their skills in order to more effectively cope with and enjoy the phases of life. So that is a very lengthy and wordy definition. Let's break down what that means a little bit more. So family life education is a type of education that helps individuals and families. So family life educators can work one-on-one with individuals. They can work with family systems as a whole, whoever somebody might live with as their family. They can also work with other groups of people. So you guys, when you go into your agency, you're going to be working with groups of coworkers. And sometimes family life educators will go into an agency or a setting similar to what you're going to do, and they'll work with different groups of coworkers. Sometimes they just work with families, sometimes they just work with individuals. It really depends on the setting. But when they're working with these people, their goal is to broaden their knowledge and enhance their skills. So that's kind of twofold. They want to, number one, give them more knowledge about something. What do they need to know, and how can we give them more knowledge about that? And then second, what skills do they need to be better at that? How can we build their skill base in order to be better at what they need to do? And the goal of all of that is to help these families and individuals and agencies to more effectively cope with and enjoy the phases of life. So you guys have talked about the phases of life in most of your classes thus far. Hopefully you can recall some of that. So moving through pregnancy, infancy, child development, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, launching and coupling off, getting married, having children of your own, having school-aged children, working through the middle years, working into retirement, all of those different phases of life until eventually coping with sickness and death. So that might work out in a lot of different ways. You might have a family life educator who is working with parents who have children with disabilities, trying to help those parents cope with this new phase of life in raising and caring for their children with disabilities. You might also have a family life educator working with what's called the sandwich generation. You've got adults who are kind of middle age. They're still raising their teenagers, but they've also got their parents who are becoming increasingly ill, and they're taking care of their parents too, on top of taking care of their own children. So family life educators can work with a wide variety of individuals and groups of people, as long as they're kind of helping them cope with the different phases that come up in their life and helping them to enjoy those different phases. Why is family life education important? There's a lot of reasons why it's important. These kind of 3 points that we have here can cover a lot of overarching themes for us. One thing is that right now families face unprecedented challenges. Another thing is that the family in all of its different shapes, forms, and circumstances needs support and education. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So what does all that mean? Families face unprecedented challenges right now. We've got exceptionally high divorce rates. We've got exceptionally high rates of unemployment. We've got new technology being created almost daily that's bombarding people and changing the way that we live our life. And a lot of those changes are good, but some of it's hard if we think about parents trying to figure out how to monitor their child's Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram and whatever other apps that I have no idea that they even exist. Parents are trying to figure out how to cope with technology themselves and how to keep their children safe in the face of all of this new technology. Those are just a few examples of the challenges that are faced by families today. But it's important that we support and educate families during these times, no matter which of those challenges they're facing or if they're facing all of them at the same time. It's really important for us to support them through education, again, to be able to give them more knowledge and skills to kind of cope with those challenges. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure means that if we can educate these individuals and families up front, before these unprecedented challenges overwhelm them, before they get stuck, then we don't have to fix them. We don't have to help them out of a problem. We've prevented them from even encountering that problem. And that's really important for family life educators to be able to come in and kind of see a problem that might exist in the future and help families and individuals and businesses find a way to kind of prevent that problem rather than have to dig themselves out of the hole once they get into that problem. So what are the purposes of family life education? There are going to be 4 kind of main purposes of why FLE even exists. The first one is the development of stability in families so that they're able to contribute constructively to society. We want to help families be stable on their own, to be able to function on their own, and to not be in a state of chaos all the time. Just think about your own life in times when things are pretty crazy and you're unsure of how the future is going to look, or you're just dealing with some really difficult circumstances. You're feeling all out of sorts yourself, and you're definitely not able to contribute constructively to society as a whole, whether through volunteering or being productive at work or just helping your friends and family through their problems. When we're not stable ourselves, it's really hard to do that. And so if we're able as family life educators to develop stability in families, those families then are going to contribute constructively to society. They're going to add to the health of society as a whole. They're going to be able to give back to society a lot better. And they're going to create a more stable society as a whole as well. We also want to build strengths in families. Family life educators believe that families and individuals all have strengths. They have things that they are absolutely outstanding at. But sometimes they just get stuck in their problems and they don't know how to find those strengths. They just keep doing the same thing over and over because they don't know how to get out of the problem that they're in. So as family life educators, we come in as an outsider we're not stuck in that problem with them. We can see alternative solutions, and we can also see things about those families and individuals that maybe they don't remember about themselves right now. So we're going to see those strengths in them, and we're going to help pull them out to make them stronger individuals and families. Because we just kind of believe that that people are not defined by their problems. The problems that people experience, problems that families experience, that's not who they are as a whole. That they have a lot of strengths that go along with that, but sometimes they just get stuck and they need help moving on to the next phase and remembering and seeing what their strengths are. Another purpose is to develop the potential of individuals in their present and future family roles. So we want to meet people where they are and say, okay, right now you are about to get married. We want to help you in this phase that you're in right now of getting ready to get married, become a couple with your partner, maybe move in together for the first time, cope with living together, things like that. But in that, we also want to give you skills that help prepare you for your future family roles. So maybe adding children to your family. How can we help them both prepare for where they're at right now and problems or just issues that might come up in the future? Even if those are good issues, like adding a child to your family, there's still things that people need help coping with sometimes. And one of the last overarching purposes of family life education is to strengthen and enrich individual and family well-being. We just want people to be healthy and well overall, mentally, physically, spiritually, socially. We want to come in and kind of walk alongside these families and individuals to help them be as strong, healthy, and well as they can be at any given time. So then we've got some principles of family life education. These are just overarching kind of principles that guide how we should approach family life education as future family life educators, which is all of us here in this class. So one of the first principles is that it's relevant to individuals and families across the lifespan. It's not a type of education that only applies to children. It's not a type of education that only applies to the elderly. It applies to both of those groups and everyone in between. It's a type of education that meets people where they're at and is able to help them no matter where they're at in their life. It's based on the needs of individuals and families, and this is a really, really important one. You're going to be coming up with your needs assessment in the next couple of weeks. That needs assessment, again, is a survey that you're going to be passing out at your agency, finding out what your agency needs. And that's because we do not want ever to walk in and tell other people what they need. We recognize that we don't live their life every day. At your agencies, we don't work there every day. We don't know what situations they live in and work in, and so we can look on the outside, as an expert. You guys have quite a bit of education in working with families and children at this point, so you can kind of look at agencies and see, what might be helpful for them, but we don't ever want to give them education on something that they don't want. We always want to meet their needs and not our own needs in our presentations. It's offered in many different settings. Family life educators go out and work in a ton of different settings. They're working in schools, they're working in nonprofit agencies, they're working in for-profit agencies, they're working in the government. There are a million different settings where family life educators are working with individuals and families, and they're not confined to any one type of setting like a classroom. This is an educational approach rather than a therapeutic approach. This can be a little tricky sometimes because the way that we view families as family life educators, it's going to feel very therapeutic because we're going to look at them as a whole. We're going to want to understand who they are before we teach them anything, and we're really going to want to meet them where they're at, and those are very therapeutic ideas. But our goal is not to go in and do therapy with these people. Our goal is to go in and educate them. So education is always kind of at the front and foremost of our goals with family life education. It represents and respects differing family values. So again, we're not going to go in and tell anybody what they need to value or who they need to be, but we're going to meet them where they are. We're going to see their different values, and we're going to work with them to kind of help them be built up in their own sets of values. It's multidisciplinary and it's multi-professional. Y'all are going to see that in this class. Some of you are going to be working at childcare facilities as the agency that you're working at. Some of you might be working with individuals with disabilities. Some of you might be working with parenting groups. Some of you might be working with people at a therapy or a mental health setting. Some of you might be working at after-school settings such as the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club. Some of you might be working at DHS, a very strict government agency that follows a lot of protocols. There's no one discipline or profession that this applies to. And it's dependent upon qualified educators. You don't want to send someone who doesn't know what they're doing out into the field to educate other people. And that's going to be you. You guys are going to be the qualified educators by the end of this semester, going out into your agencies and educating your agency on what they need to know based on all of these principles and practices of family life education. Okay, so dialogue education, we're shifting gears a little bit. If family life education is the type of overarching education that we are delivering, dialogue education is our method for delivering family life education. And dialogue education is going to be very different from traditional methods of education. Oftentimes, when we think of educating or being educated, we think of sitting in a classroom and listening to someone tell us new things. And that is not how dialogue education works, and that's not how your presentations are going to work either. So we're going to use this method of dialogue education in your presentations. And very similar to family life education, it believes that education should serve. It should serve, one, a purpose. It should never just be mundane or exist just to exist. It should be very purposeful. But also it should serve your audience. It should take them into consideration. It should consider a lot of things about them. What time would work best for them? Do I need to bring snacks for them? Am I asking them to come to my presentation during their lunch break? If so, maybe I need to bring some food for them. It should consider what setting would work best for my audience. If I'm asking them to complete their presentation in a lunchroom or kind of a staff room of their agency, but it's not big enough for everybody to have a seat in there, that's not going to be very considerate. You want to consider them in the time and place that you have your presentation, and you want to consider them in your ultimate topic for your presentation. So you're learning through service. Your goal is serving your audience, and you're going to kind of keep this motto in mind, helping humans recognize their right and responsibility to help create the world they live in and want to live in by naming and acting upon the world consciously. So that's going to take place in kind of a twofold way. It's going to apply both to you and to your audience. So hopefully through this class, you guys are learning your right and responsibility to help create the world that you live in and want to live in by acting upon it consciously. You're doing that by going out and helping these agencies that you're going to be working at. You're going to be recognizing that, hey, I am educated in this field. I'm qualified to be a family life educator by the end of this class. And it's my right and responsibility to help create the world I want to live in. So I'm going to give my best presentation at my agency this semester. And then in turn, from your presentation that you give, your agency should be able to say the same thing about them. After hearing your presentation, they're going to say, yeah, it's my right and responsibility to take this information that I've learned, take it back to my workplace, and kind of help create the world that I want to live in, especially the workplace that I want to live in, by acting differently based on this education that I've just received or that they just received from you. So if we kind of take a step back and think about where you fit in, this is going to tie into your discussion question assignment for this week. But you want to think about what type of agency do I want to work at this semester. And you really want to put some time and thought into this because you don't want to be stuck with an agency that you don't like all semester. And I really want you to consider your kind of ultimate career goals. I've got this chart copied and pasted here, and it's pretty easy to read, but it's also uploaded in your materials section for this week, week 1, and it's a little bit larger and easier to read in that setting. But what I want you to do is take some time, go back through and look at the slides discussing the principles of family life education, the purposes of family life education, and then look through this chart and really think about, where do I fit in with all of this? And that's going to tie into your discussion question in a couple of different ways, because you're going to have to tell us kind of what agencies you're thinking about partnering with for your project this semester. So I do want you to kind of pause and take a few minutes to go back and look through, think about what you want to do, and take some time to kind of read through this chart. I'm just going to go over it really briefly. I'm not going to go over everything. Just some pretty common ones that we see people kind of falling into from this major. That does not mean that the other ones aren't good options. They're just things that kind of come up more than others. If we look at community-based social services, we have a lot of people interested in foster care programs or adoption agencies, teen pregnancy agencies, adult daycare type settings, retirement centers, things like that. Early childhood education is a big one, especially for CD or child development emphasis students. Daycare centers, Montessori schools, Head Start programs, that kind of thing. Faith-based organizations also tends to be a pretty hot topic for a lot of our students working either in youth programs or parent education or ministry settings that are tied to a certain religious affiliation. We also have a lot of our FAM students who end up in family intervention type settings, things like the Schaefer Center for Crisis Intervention. That's a specific place in Hattiesburg that kind of relates to that. But also, a lot of times students end up working in therapeutic services, whether that's individual, family, relating to domestic abuse or drug and alcohol, or just different mental health issues that people have to work with throughout their lifespan. Those tend to be pretty popular landing places for our students. And then lastly, we have a good many students who are often interested in research, grant proposal writing, working on different things, either in the nonprofit sector with family agencies or related to government research. All those types of settings tend to be pretty popular for our students. But do take a second, read through this whole chart, go back, look through, and kind of see which one you're interested in and how that kind of relates back to family life education. Alrighty, so we're going to switch gears pretty drastically and look ahead to your text critique assignment. Make sure I'm very clear on this. Your first text critique is not due this week. It's due next week, but I want to go over it quickly here. These critiques are going to cover your textbook, which is your VELA textbook, your family life education book. There are 11 chapters in this book, and it's going to be broken down into a total of 5 written text critiques. These text critiques are going to be 1 page each. Each one is worth 10 points for a total of 50 points. 10 points does not sound like a lot. It sounds like you could just skip one and be okay. I would not recommend that. This book is going to be essential to surviving this semester, so it's important that you kind of have read it all up front. But also, those 10 points add up really quickly. I've had several students in the past fail the class because they neglected to do their text critique, so don't let that happen to you. Each critique is going to address 2 chapters according to the class schedule. You can see that outlined on the course schedule in the syllabus. There is one exception. There's one text critique that's going to cover 3 chapters. But each critique should be 1 page, and it should include the following information: your name and identification of your critique number. So if you're doing critique 1, it needs to tell me you're doing critique 1. And the reason for that is a lot of times students will want to work ahead on these and just kind of knock them all out in the first couple of weeks. That's perfectly fine. But sometimes when that happens, they'll upload the wrong critique to the wrong section. And if I'm grading your critique 1 and you're not talking about the chapters that you're supposed to for that section, you're going to get a 0 for that one. So tell me which critique you're talking about, and that'll kind of better help me identify that you're on the right track. The next thing that your paper should include is an introduction section. This should be one healthy paragraph, 3 to 5 sentences, and you're going to describe the main thought of each chapter. So your introduction should be kind of a summary of each of the chapters assigned. So for text critique 1, you're discussing chapters 1 and 2. So you'll have read chapters 1 and 2. And then for your introduction section, you're going to give me 3 to 5 sentences talking about the main points of each chapter. That's 3 to 5 sentences total, okay? So you've got 2 full chapters that you're condensing down into 1 paragraph. I'm not asking for a whole lot here. I just need to know that you have read it and you get what the main points are. The next section is new learning. This should describe new learning or a new perspective gained from each chapter. And so this section should look very different from the introduction. You should not say more things about what the chapter said. It should not be a continuation of your introduction. It should not be a continuation of summarizing the thoughts from the chapter. This section should use first person. It should say something new that I learned personally from this chapter is, or I had never thought about education in this way, and this is how my perspective changed from reading this chapter. You're going to tell us specifically your new learning or your new perspective from each chapter. And again, that section should be about 1 full paragraph for the entire 2 chapters that you're assigned. The last section is going to be application. You are going to summarize how the material can be used in your personal and professional life. And you need to be quite specific for this section. So for the application section, you're going to take each chapter. So again, if we're looking at critique 1, you're going to have chapter 1 and chapter 2. You're going to tell me a very specific personal application and a very specific professional application for the material presented in those chapters. Now, I don't need a personal and professional from each chapter. I just need 1 personal application, 1 professional application. It can come from either of those chapters, but it needs to be specific. So for a professional application, don't tell me I'm going to use this material in my line of work as a lead teacher in a child development center. That's not specific. How are you going to use that information? How are you going to implement it into your classroom? How exactly are you going to apply the material in your personal life and in your professional life? You want to include all 3 of those headings, so the introduction, the new learning, and the application. And you also want to state which chapter you're specifically discussing. So if you're going to summarize some information for me in the introduction, tell me which chapter you're summarizing. Don't just start spouting off information and not let us know which one it's coming from. You do not have to provide in-text citations for these. I know exactly where your material is coming from, so don't worry about providing either in-text or a references page. I don't need any of that. But you should not use any quotes. There should be 0 direct quotes from this. This is only 1 page, so I shouldn't see any direct quotes in here. It should be Times New Roman, 12.5, 1-inch margins, and double-spaced. There is a rubric provided in the text critique section of your assignments tab in Blackboard, and it has to be 1 full page. If it's less than a page, you're going to lose points, because I am not asking for a lot here. All right, 1 full page is all I need to summarize 2 entire chapters. So please make sure that you are giving me that full page. All of your assignments, your written assignments, are going to be turned in through Turnitin.com. This means that you have the ability to turn in your assignments any time that you want before the due date, to check it for both originality and for spelling, grammar, things like that. Once you upload your paper, you can view your originality, which means have I plagiarized anything in my paper. If you have, you want to reword that. Make sure everything is written in your own words. Again, there should be no direct quotes, and you should not be copying from a classmate either in this class or a previous section of this class. Whenever you upload your papers, you can also see a grade mark, which basically says if you've got any spelling or grammar errors. And when you upload it, if you're uploading it before the due date, feel free to upload it, look through it, and make changes and upload it again. You can upload it as many times as you want before the due date. After the due date, your last submitted assignment is what's going to get graded. It is suggested that if you're going to do that, you do it 48 hours in advance at least. Sometimes it can take that long to process your originality report. Please make sure that you read the academic honesty statement in the syllabus. The university as a whole is taking issues of academic honesty much more seriously this school year, and all issues of academic dishonesty will be reported to the provost office. So if you do have a paper that's submitted on the due date with substantial issues with originality, you will get a failing grade for the assignment, and we'll have a discussion about what further steps are going to be taken as far as reporting it to the provost office. All right, so wrapping up here, due by this Friday, which is the 26th of August at 5 p.m. Just a side note, all of your assignments are due on Fridays by 5 p.m. You've got discussion question 1 and your syllabus quiz. We're going to go into some more detail about discussion question 1 in just a second, but your syllabus quiz, that is located in your week 1 assignments folder. It's also located in the syllabus tab. You can take that as many times as you want before the due date, and I would encourage you to do so. Take it as many times as you want until you get a perfect score, 10 out of 10. There's no reason to lose points on this. The purpose is just to make sure that you've gotten some of the most important points of the syllabus. You can have your syllabus right in front of you when you take it. This is not a timed quiz. You do have to take the whole thing, in one sitting. So don't sit down and get up and plan to come back and do the rest later. It will cut you off and only give you a score for the ones that you have completed so far. So do take your syllabus quiz, take it as many times as you like to get the grade that you want, and be sure that that's done by Friday. Alrighty, so if we're looking at discussion question 1 specifically, again, you're going to fully read all the PowerPoint and materials for this week before completing your discussion post. And then the first part of this discussion post is going to be an introduction of yourself for the rest of the class. You're going to tell us your major, including your emphasis, your career goals, your inspiration, and your motivation for achieving your career goals. So what makes you want to do what you want to do? You can also feel free to share any other personal details that you would like the class to know. But please do be aware, both myself and everyone in the class has access to all discussion questions. So do make sure you have that in the back of your mind as you are completing your discussion questions. The second part of your discussion question 1 is going to be identifying 3 potential agencies where you want to complete your community practicum assignment. So again, this is that assignment that we're talking about where you'll complete your service learning hours, you're going to administer your needs assessment, and you're going to complete your community presentation at the end of the semester. You're going to in the end, you're only going to present at one agency. You're only going to be doing your project all semester at one agency. But we're going to brainstorm a list of 3 potential agencies so that you have alternatives in case your number 1 choice either doesn't allow you to complete your agency with them or you're not able to contact them or something like that. These do need to be agencies in the field of child and family services. They need to be related to what we're doing here. What you're going to do is share the name of each of the agencies that you're interested in, the kind of work they do for the community, and why you're interested in doing your assignment with them. When you're listing your 3 potential agencies, you need to list them in order of interest. So the first one that you list for us is going to be your number 1 interest. That means this is where I want to complete my assignment the most. I am going to call them tonight when I get done with my homework or tomorrow when they open, and I'm going to try and be able to do my project with them first. Your number 2 and your number 3 option are going to be, if number 1 doesn't work out, I'm going to go with number 2. Number 2 doesn't work out, I'm going to go with number 3. Okay? Please make a note. Each student has to have their own agency. No 2 students can complete their project at the same agency. Because of this, agencies are going to be assigned on a first come, first served basis. So before you make your discussion post, you need to read through everybody else's discussion post. And your number 1 agency cannot be the same number 1 agency as someone else. You can have the same number 2 or number 3 as someone else, but you cannot have the same number 1 agency. So make sure you do read everyone else's discussion posts so that you have your own number 1 listed. And then during week 2, this is not for this assignment, but just to give you kind of a heads up of where we're going. You're going to be responsible for contacting these agencies, beginning with your number 1 agency, to explain the project and receive permission to complete your assignment with them. And then in next week's discussion post, you're going to be required to have an agreement with that agency and to let me and the class know where you're completing your assignment. I do follow up with these agencies, so by next week, you're going to have gotten permission from someone at an agency, and you're going to tell us the name of the agency, the name of the person you spoke with, and how I can get into contact with them. This is a pretty lengthy assignment, and so I do like to have a good working relationship between you and your supervisor at the agency. So you will have to turn all of that in next week. For that reason, I recommend that you get on and read next week's discussion posts on Monday. Next week's PowerPoints on Monday. Give yourself a full week to work through contacting agencies. They might have to take a day or 2 and call you back. This is not something that you can start Friday at 4 p.m. before your assignment is due. So do make sure that you start next week as soon as possible. That is going to cover it for this week. Again, you've got your discussion question, your syllabus quiz that are due by Friday at 5 of this week. If you have any questions that pertain to the class as a whole, so a question about an assignment that everybody might have that same question, go ahead and post that question to the coffee shop. That's a discussion board within the discussion boards tab that is available for all students to see and to ask questions about the class. So if you have a question about the class, be sure to check the coffee shop and make sure that no one else has already asked that question. I will respond to questions there so that everybody can see the question and the answer. It's just a really good way for us all to be able to communicate without everyone having to ask the same question. If you have a question, like I said, post there or shoot me an email or stop by my office hours. I'm really excited to get this semester started with you all, and I look forward to reading your discussion posts.